Okay, so a lot of you have wanted a video from me on how to write emo riffs or how I write my riffs, basically. And my last video that I tried to make of this was like 20 minutes long, so I'm gonna try and make this as short and concise as possible. Um, so first off, basic general rules for writing. I mean, just rip off your favorite bands, really. But don't totally rip them off, but change it. You'll see. I'll show you how I ripped off a Tiny Moving Parts riff, but it doesn't sound. The two riffs I'm going to show you don't sound anything like it, at all. I read an article on Reddit like a month ago, and it outlined the creative process in words that I had never really thought about before, but is what I've been doing instinctually since I've been playing guitar, and that was three steps were replicate, modify, and transform. And I really think that's a good way to look at being creative and writing riffs in general. So some general tips for writing emo stuff: just pull offs to open strings. Use a lot of open string work. Slides, lots of slides. It gives that that twinkly sound. Tapping is very useful. It's not something you need, but it definitely helps and makes it easier to get that twinkly sound. A lot of people say you need to use alternate tunings or open tunings, and that's really not the case. I don't use them a lot. I usually use drop D just because I come from a metal and hardcore background, and I'm more comfortable playing in drop tunings, and I just like the lower bass register, really. I like the chord shapes I can do, and I'm just more familiar with it overall. But explore it. I mean, you can, just go to FACGCE and go learn Never Meant, and that'll give you a really good idea on how to write twinkly stuff. Tapping, I'm not going to go into the basic idea of tapping because it's not what this video is about, but if you want to, try and do tapping stuff like I have in some of my videos, basically find a chord shape that you really like, and then, mess around on the higher parts of the fretboard and try and see, what sounds good or what you like. I use a lot of suspended power chord shapes and diminished power chord shapes. Like the suspension one is like, or the diminished one, and I use that a lot just because I don't know, that's the shapes that I like. But you can move it around the fretboard and put it in different keys and make it sound way different than what just a regular one is. So doing tapping stuff, I would just get my middle finger get as good as that as you think you can with that before you start moving to all of your other separate fingers. Because if you see in that one video, my first emo screamo riffs video, you'll notice that all of the riffs are only done with one finger. There's nothing really super technical about my right hand to work with it. It's all just using my middle finger. Like there's a riff that's like. Exactly. It's all just one finger. But it took me a good amount of time tapping before I was comfortable enough trying to use my other fingers. But the way to do that is just start slow, and then add either your ring finger or your index finger at first, and then get comfortable with that. And then once you do that, all of your other fingers will kind of follow suit a little more. You'll be more comfortable doing that and adding those other fingers in. So just find a chord shape you like, move it around, try and find notes that harmonize well with it. So there's a whole bunch of notes you can use there, and just try and see what you like. Really, it's just I don't know. It's basically just writing any other sort of type of music. Okay, so the three riffs I'm going to show you, two of them are basically just ripped off of a big rip off of a riff from Vacation Bible School, and that riff is. So my riffs are, this first one's a tapping riff. It's. So, I mean, that really doesn't sound like that riff at all, but I got the inspiration from that riff, like, because the first part of it is sort of the same thing of the tiny moving parts riff. The tiny moving parts riff goes, the first part of it is, mine is, it's very, very similar, and you can see where I got the idea from it. I just wanted to do it lower, and I reversed it, basically. So I did that, and then, I kind of kept in the same general vicinity of where that key is and where that riff is, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. And the way I came up with that was like, okay, I'm gonna reverse it, and then start it. And then usually, going up in fourths is always a really good idea, just because, major harmonies are really good, and fourth is a major interval. It's a major key, it's a major chord in a lot of keys and a lot of the major keys, or all of the major keys, I should say. And it's just usually a very good idea to go with. So I'm just basically doing that tiny moving parts riff, but then moving it up a fourth, and then adding this little end of it riff, which I got from Uchini Kubani or something. I can't really say it. They have that song 8 Films, and I learned that, and he does a thing where it's like, and I was like, okay, I want to try and use that in somewhere, and then I ended up using it in here. So the riff again is, and you can kind of see where I got that idea from. This next riff is, again, ripped off from that tiny moving parts riff, except for I didn't move the first note lower, and I picked it. So, the riff is, but the riff that I'm playing is, and you notice that whole riff is basically just centered around pull-offs to open strings, a bunch of slides, and that's basically it, really. It's just a whole bunch of pull-offs to open strings and slides. It's just, that's really all it is. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but it's really not hard. You just have to think of it as any other way you would write music. Just go learn some emo songs and rip them off completely until you know what you're doing. And this last riff is it's a tapping riff. It's kind of a little more advanced. I'm going to use all my 4 fingers, but the chord progression I'm using is basically the bar sus chord, and then I'm going to go the diminished part of it. So I've used that riff, that chord progression, in a couple of my riffs, like the one in my video. It's a. So when I was thinking that, I was like, I want to write something with my pinky, and I know I like the chord progression, and I had just written a riff that was using that same progression, but it sounds completely different. And so I know from this shape that I've used it before that tapping stuff around the 12th fret area usually works pretty well. So I was just messing around. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and see where I can hit with my pinky that sounds good, but's also comfortable for me to actually hit on a regular basis. So the riff in question is. When I was starting it, I was trying to hit notes and then use my pinky somewhere in it. Just that, because I had also been doing stuff where I would be using my fingers to hammer on and pull off with my right hand. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and put that somewhere else, but also use my pinky. And so I hit the first 2 notes. I was like, okay, I can hit this 15th fret right here pretty easily and pull off, and it sounds good. And I want to write, a lot of my riffs are very call and response. So I wrote that first part, and I was like, I need a way to end it. And the obvious choice would be to go back to that progression and change chords. So it's like, but the whole point was really I just wanted to try and use my pinky and come up with something cool. Um, that's really it. I don't know what else I can say for the most part. I hope this helped some of you. And if not, I'm sorry. But I'm not really good at explaining all of this. So yeah, that's it. That's my tutorial.